I'm just going to do this fast. All of you guys know one of our amazing couples from this church is Alex and Liz Choi. You guys know them. Show some love. They just incredible leaders. Many of you guys have seen Liz in particular, who does more stage ministry, but her husband's one of our key leaders that runs all the stuff. He doesn't even like the mic. He's all, Jay, I don't want to be up there. Where I actually feel with Liz and her giftings, music, singing, you guys see her a little bit more often. But Liz is an incredible worship leader. Honestly, I think she's an incredible speaker. I think there's a preacher in there we all are waiting to see come out. But I say that she has graciously agreed to help as a married couple. I'm the single guy here, so I ain't going to be up in this thing. I'm going to take my seat. But I invited her and we asked her, Will and Andrea, we thought she would be wonderful. So she's actually going to be hosting a panel today. But before I pass it to her, I just want to encourage you guys, all of the singles, to lean in because they're telling us a lot of stuff as married couples, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years in, that if we take notes and we apply it now, can save us years. If we apply it now and we get ourselves ready, right? So I say that without any further ado, would you guys do me a favor? Would you put your hands together for Liz Choi as she comes up? Let's go. And our amazing team. You'll meet them soon.
Oh my God. I'm going to sit because I'm a faint if I don't. So I'm going to just sit. Hey guys. Oh my gosh. Hey guys, everyone. Oh my God, are you guys excited to be here? This is my first time leading anything like this, so please have grace on me. Pray for me while you're sitting because I'm gonna need it. But before I introduce our amazing panelists, I actually wanted to just share my heart. And especially, I want to speak to the singles in the room. And I just want to start off by saying, I have so much love for you guys. And so much props to you for just sticking through the last few messages and teachings on marriage, because I know that it's hard to really engage and really understand the true value of what we've been speaking about when it's not even on your radar. Y'all are just trying to get a date, but we're talking about heavy marriage stuff. And so I just want to say thank you guys so much. And, I just want to encourage us with this before we begin. Marriage is such a hot topic, along with politics, mental health, all of that. And you know what? If the church ain't speaking about it, and if we're not the one educating us about it, then where are we getting it from? I feel like the church has to be the voice that is the loudest on these things. And the fact that we have a church that is willing to put up 4 weeks now about marriage, we're doing something different. We're doing something different. And I know, again, that for the singles in the room, that these might not apply to you right now. These tools and these words of wisdom may not apply to you right now, but I really want to encourage us to really bookmark all of the words of wisdom that are going to be poured out to you, that have been poured out to you in this last couple of weeks, and keep it in your back pocket. Because honestly, from somebody who comes from a broken home, who is married for 14 years, who has touched the brink of divorce myself, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard work. And if we don't truly understand the abundance that God has for our marriages, and not only for ourselves personally, but for our marriages and our family, it's going to be really hard to fight for it when that time comes. Because it's true, and believe it, when the Bible says in John 10:10 that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, believe that there is a devil out there that wants to destroy your family and especially your marriages. And so we want to be able to fully equip all of our members. Even for myself, I'm still learning. I'm still learning 14 years in. That learning, that posture of learning and receiving, it never stops. And I'm still learning to understand what this whole marriage thing is about. And so I just pray that, just as we go into the panel and as we start really digging into the nitty-gritty, the juicy juice of marriage from these couples, that, you guys would just really be blessed by that and you would receive the goodness. All right, so I'm going to stop talking, but without further ado, I'd love to welcome our panelists up to the stage. Would you guys give a warm welcome for them? Come on up, guys. So I thought it'd be really fun if we could go and just introduce our couples, but we play a little game and see how well each couple knows each other. Are y'all ready? I hope I'm not starting anything. After. All right. So we're going to actually start with, we'll just call you guys couple number one because I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself. So we're going to start by saying your name and then how long you've been married.
My name is Will,
Enrico.
and we've been married in July. It'll be 25 years.
Come on, come on. Okay. So this question will be for Will. What is your significant other biggest pet peeve?
Uh-oh. Okay. I think relational-wise, for me, is not listening and letting her speak. I think that's probably the main thing relational-wise. Huh? Me not listening and me kind of talking over you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You got it right. Okay, at least you know after 25 years. That's a good sign. Okay, this is your question for you, Noriko. If your significant other was born an animal, what would they be and why?
The animal?
If he was to be
Cow?
born a cow. A cow. Okay.
I can be an eagle.
But let her explain. Let her explain why she chose cow.
Yeah, let me hear this. Go ahead.
No, it's because he's calm always and nice and it's just,
That's a great compliment.
I'm sorry.
I love it. I love it. Let's give it up for Will and Noriko, guys. Hopping over to our second couple of the hour. Can you please introduce your name and then how long you've been married?
Eugenia, and we've been married almost 9 years now.
Come on.
And Austin.
Awesome. Okay, this is for Eugenia. 3 things you like most about each other, or about Austin.
This is easy.
Aww.
Austin is a very gentle person in spirit. He's very patient and he's very kind. Those 3 are definitely the biggest things about that I love.
Awesome. That's so sweet. Okay, now Austin, for you, where was your first date?
Oh, in
Better get it right.
Jerusalem, in Israel.
Oh, he remembers.
Yeah, we were there visiting, and we went to get some hot chocolate and watch the sunset in the city there.
Okay, that was too easy. So, when was the first time you laid eyes on her and you were like, "Oh, she's the one"?
Also in Jerusalem, but then we were
In
at
the promised land and everything.
we went to Jericho, and that's where we talked for the first time and fell in love.
Holy marriage right there. That's so good. Let's give it up for Austin and Eugenia, guys. Our third couple of the hour, name and how long you've been married.
Jane.
Elliot.
We've been married for 4 years.
They are our youngest couple in the house today. All right, Jane, what is Elliot's favorite food?
Oh my gosh. I would say dirty tacos.
Is she right?
Sure. I don't have favorite food, but that's
Just all junk food. All junk
junk
food.
That's like top 5.
Safe answer, safe answer. Okay, Elliot, if your significant other could have a superpower, what would that be and why?
Probably to make me listen to everything she says.
Because she doesn't?
Oh, no. Yeah, because I don't listen to
Oh,
her very
because you
well.
don't
Yeah,
listen.
yeah.
That's okay. Okay, is that, would that be? Okay. Let's give it up for Jane and Elliot. Okay, and then now me and my husband will introduce. My name is Liz,
My name is Alex.
and we've been married for how many years?
14.
14 years.
14
Okay.
years.
Okay, Alex.
Oh, man.
What is my top 3 love language?
Gifts.
No. What the? Where did you?
Gifts, affection, words of affirmation, quality time. Yeah, quality time.
I said 3, not
Quality
4.
time.
And you have it all flipped.
Top is gifts.
No. From Glossai. All right. And my question for him, and it's not, by the way, let me just make the thing, let me correct it. It is quality time, just so you know, words of affirmation, and then acts of service. Gifts was like way down on the line. Just FYI. Okay. My question to Alex was favorite color, red.
Mine?
Yeah, red.
Well, why would you ask me that kind of question?
No, I'm answering it.
Okay.
Your favorite color is red.
Okay. So
All right.
she asked the question and she answers. Okay.
Because I'm the host. That's what hosts do.
Okay.
All right, guys. We're going to get into the questions. Y'all ready? All right, our first question, and I just want to thank everyone who actually responded. I did a personal IG questionnaire type of thing, and we got some really great questions, and then we got some not so really great questions, but we're going to kind of go off of the questions that I received, so thank you guys so much for your participation. Question 1, what are your thoughts on the pressures of having to be married before you're 30?
All right. So Jane and I, we're gonna take this question. I think for me growing up, Pastor William was my youth pastor growing up, and he got married really early. And I don't know about you guys, but I grew up in the whole like purity culture, right? So I think there's a lot of unnecessary pressure, like growing up in that purity culture to like get married so that you can have sex, right? And so you want to get married. You want to get married early so that, you know, if you like burn with passion, like you won't fall into that sin.
Earmuffs, Max, earmuffs.
And so for me personally, for those that, you know, share the same conviction of wanting to save yourself for marriage, I just want to speak specifically to you guys. I was able to do that by the grace of God. And I think the most important thing is if you have that conviction to just stick with it and really give yourself to God with that conviction. And I think that pressure begins to fade, right? If you say, God, I'm going to give myself to you and save myself for marriage, that pressure of like, oh, I gotta hurry up and get married so that, you know, we can do the thing. And I think that pressure starts to fade. But I think on the flip side is kind of a contradiction because I got married at 25. But I also want to speak to that because my wife is 3 years older than me. And so for me, there was, yeah, woo! Yeah, I got her.
That noontime time.
There was this like, for me personally, there was this, I had to be mindful of her timeline as well because she is a little bit older than me. And so for those that are in like kind of our situation, I just want to encourage you guys. The ladies are probably waiting if they're a little bit older. And Jane was patient enough with me. You know, she wasn't like taking me to like Tiffany's all the time or like Tappers and like showing me her ring finger. There was no pressure on her end, but for me, I just wanted to be mindful of she's getting a little bit older and we want to, you know, spend our lives together.
Oh, that's good.
Good, Elliot. Thank you.
So for me, I did get married before 30, but I would have really been okay, honestly, if I got married after 30. And it's not just like the 30 mark, it could be the 40 mark, the 50 mark, however long you decide and or the lifestyle that you live caters to a non-married lifestyle. But I think for me, the biggest takeaway of my 20s was I fell in love with me. And that was the time that I took the most trips, had the best times with my sisters, my girlfriends. And yeah, there'd be days like, you know, any person has insecurities, but there'd be days when I look in the mirror and be like, I really like you. And I would be your friend, you know? And I think that helped a lot in terms of not projecting insecurities into my marriage about me. And I'm really glad I took that time, and I'm really glad I owned it, because it wasn't like some way to shield the fact that I wasn't in a relationship or that I felt pressured to get married, but it was really like this sacred time that, honestly, I'm sorry, I'll never get back, where I'm alone and enjoying who I am and who God created me to be.
Jane, I think that is so good, and it's so key, because if I had known what you just spoke about before I got married, I wouldn't be trying to do that now. Like, I'm almost 40, you know what I'm saying? And so, sorry. Thank you. No, but I wouldn't have gone through what I'm going through now and trying to figure out and how to love myself and going through all the insecurities and all that. So I think that was so key. Thank you so much for sharing that. So you wanna add anything?
No, I mean, I think that's good because, we both got married in our 20s. Noriko was in her early 20s. I was also early 20s. Oh, my bad. My bad. But anyway, I think I bought in a lot of stuff into our marriage early on where I thought I was still single. I thought I can, do my own thing, go where I want to go. And I kind of had a single mindset still because I was in my early 20s. And so I want to encourage you, if you're still single, to take time to go ahead and explore, enjoy your singlehood. Before you go ahead and get married. I thank God, though, that I got married to her. And I'll probably talk about that a little bit more later. It's really been a blessing, and, we're going on 25 years now. But like I said, definitely take time to enjoy your singlehood.
Amen to that. Thank you so much. We're going to jump into the next question. What are some important things to discuss or ask each other before getting married?
So I'd like to answer that.
Sure.
There are 3 top things that I think that I would have discussed. I mean, we did discuss a couple of these, but not all. One is, obviously you're here, you're a believer, right? You want to discuss the person you're dating. Are they a believer? Because a lot of us also have friends or acquaintances that say, my parents are Christian. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're Christian, correct? So you need to really explore and see if this person is actually walking with the Lord, actually has a solid relationship with Christ. So that's the biggest one. Secondly, I would talk to the person that I'm thinking of dating or are dating, children. Where do you stand on children? Because if you, especially for women, we have this idea that if we don't talk about what we want, then when we get married, then, our spouse is just going to automatically know, or they'll read our minds about it, or if we bring it up, then, they'll be okay with it. That's not necessarily true. So you need to talk about if you want kids, especially for women, because I feel like a lot of women right now dating, I hear this so much, especially on social media, they don't talk to their boyfriends about, I want kids. Because they feel like they're going to get scared away. And that's not good. Like, if you want kids, tell your boyfriend, the person you're dating, that you want kids. How many kids do you want? Get aligned with that. Because if they say no, what are you going to do? Yeah. Are you going to stay with them and then compromise on what you want? Or are you going to, move on and find somebody that does want kids and has those values? So. The third one would be a big one is finances. Huge. So this is one thing that we didn't really necessarily do because we were so in love. It's like that. If I said to him once, I was like, if you lived in a box, I'd live with you. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily true anymore. Being in love makes you say silly things. I have a friend that told me this, and she's been married with her husband for 5 years now, and she said, before I got married, I told him, I don't want to live in an apartment, I need a house. And I thought that was kind of harsh. I'm like, geez, okay. But before they got married, he bought her a house, and I'm like, dang, I should have done that. I I should have.
Did you hear that, ladies?
But
Say you want a house,
no,
not a box.
I get. Like, not everybody has those the finances to like fund a house right now, especially in the market. But talk about your finances, how you want to handle finances. You know, saving, spending, super important. What else about finances am I missing? Oh yeah, stay-at-home moms. Do you want to be a stay-at-home mom? Does your husband expect you to work when you have a kid? I mean, that's a big one because you see couples going into this and they argue like, I didn't think you wanted to stay at home. Like, you need to go work, you know? Or she wants to work and the husband wants her to stay home. So talk about these things, like, what do you want to see your marriage look like? Because these things become triggers, things become stressors in your relationship later on if you don't talk about them. Because you can refer back, say, hey, we talked about this when we were dating. So, you know, you already know. So those are the big 3 ones for me.
That's so good. Such wisdom there. Okay, next question. What are some ways to navigate different family backgrounds and history?
Oh, I can answer that one. You want to answer that, Noriko? And then I'll let you jump in. Okay. So, I mean, we obviously have different family backgrounds and history. Me being African American and my wife being Japanese. I would say in the beginning, it wasn't really an issue, but it became an issue later on. We got married because of the way that Japanese communicate, and I think it could be really indicative of Asian culture. They're not really necessarily straight when they talk. It's really circular. Everything goes this way. Y'all know what I'm saying? It goes like this way. And then, you know, black folks, we kind of go this way. We come at you. So that caused a lot of issues early on in the marriage. I would come at her like this, and she would be angry, and then she would come this way, and I would not get that there was an issue until way later on. Yeah. So just kind of learning how to navigate the cultural differences and the way we communicate. Yeah. There's some things that she took up from my culture, like, for example, you know, the way we eat wasn't necessarily the way that they ate. We tend to eat, especially I'm from the South, we ate pretty heavy. I don't know if you ever heard of collard greens and sweet potato pie and all that good stuff. Okay. But at the same time, I adapted. What did I adapt? I adapted what? What do I eat every day?
Rice. Rice.
Rice. So now I can't live without my rice. You see what I'm saying? We have the rice cooker. So definitely learn to adapt. And it doesn't necessarily have to be culture, but sometimes it could be history also, different family history dynamics. Yeah. You definitely have to, it could be challenging to adapt to, but I think the main thing that helped us was the ability to compromise. Compromise and be open-minded.
Yeah. Yes. So for me, like he say, you know, he used to come really straight. And in my culture, you know, I learned to be like, take in everything, hold it in, and don't show in the front. So that became really stress on me, and it just blew up one day, you know, just out of nowhere, just blew up. And he have no idea, like, why I'm angry. So, you know, and then over the time, we learn, I guess, to discuss those issues and be open about it, and, you know, just compromise some things, you know, just don't always say, I want this. Instead, like, what we want together, and we have to learn each other. Yeah. So as a result, he eats rice every day.
Noriko, in the same way, have you also adopted some of just Will's culture too?
Yes, I actually learned how to cook Southern food.
Wow!
Yes,
that is so good. I love that. I'd love to taste it one day. That's awesome.
I want to piggyback a little bit. So culturally similar, Korean American, but I think our family and testimony is so different. I think Elliot kind of shared, he saved himself for marriage, which I'm super thankful for. But on the flip side, it was a little opposite for me. And I had a really damaging background, whether it's like family dysfunction, unhealthy dynamics in the home, and then also just like a bad history of really bad relationships. And so during our dating period, and we actually got engaged, I think, at this point, but my brother, he suffers from a lot of mental health. And so one of the days he went through like huge manic episode and ended up getting hospitalized. And my mom called me and she was like, oh, you need to come. But I kept trying to tell him to stay home while I went to the emergency room. And at this point, he's my fiance, right? And so he was like, no, I'm gonna come with you. And I'm like, no, can you just stay home? And he was like, that's so weird, I'm just gonna come. But I think a part of me, there was a lot of shame. And there was a lot of embarrassment. And I mean, we made a commitment, but I wanted to take my commitment back. So after the whole situation, he was at the hospital, he experienced a whole thing. For me, I mean, so many years of dealing with this, like I'm just like completely fine, but he was like a deer in headlights, like experiencing this whole situation. And I could tell like he's uncomfortable. And so afterwards I went home and I was like, I don't think we should get married. And a big part of that was because in that moment I realized my family will become his family. And that's the last thing I wanted him to receive. And so before my husband, I actually only thought I deserved someone who's like me or worser than me. Wow. And so in terms of like history and, relationships, and I feel like a lot of women, if you come from a divorced home, you only try to date divorced family background homes. Like men who also come from divorced families. Because there is like this, like, I understand you, but then also like, I don't think I deserve to have wholeness. And I think when I was dating, that's all I ever looked for, were men with bad dating histories, because they understood bad dating history. Therefore, I never had to explain or feel embarrassed for the things that I kept record of. And when I shared things with my husband, so like, I don't know for all men, but for me, this was a huge breakthrough where I was like, so do you want to know everything? And he was like, no. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't want to know how many boyfriends and who they were and what they did to me and all this stuff? He was like, no, I don't really care to know any of that stuff. And for me, that was huge because I didn't feel like I had to explain all of that because he had an idea, but that didn't matter. Like, in the end, he was still pursuing who I was. And so in that sense, dealing with our cultural, not our cultural background, but our history and our background in the home, I think a lot of times we forfeit what's so good for us because we don't think we deserve it or that it's possible. But through my husband and through our marriage, I realized like, oh my gosh, I need to dream bigger and I need to believe in a bigger God. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. That is so amazing. Both of you guys. Thank you. Okay, next question. And this is going to be one that I want to ask all of our couples to just answer quickly. But what has been the greatest challenge, but also the greatest reward in your marriage?
I would say the greatest challenge for us in our marriage, I would say probably our marriage has been pretty good, but I would say around year 10, it was really tough. And I would say it was mainly due to finances. The economy went way down during that time. It was the Great Recession. I was laid off, but God still provided, amen? But one thing I would say is to really discuss finances prior to you getting married. And then if you're not in good financial shape, work on getting yourself financially healthy before you get married. Because you don't want to bring that stuff into marriage because it can cause some issues. And I would say the greatest reward in marriage is the fact that, where the areas that I'm weak, because God talks about, he sent Eve to Adam to be a helpmeet for him. And she really helps me to strengthen the areas that I'm weak, and I would say vice versa. It's really been good just sharing and doing life with her and pursuing the purpose that God has for our life. That has been probably the most beautiful thing for our marriage. So I really thank God for that.
I think for me, the greatest part of our marriage has been our son. Like, granted, he's only 3, so once he gets a teenager, maybe I'll take that back.
Oh, you will. I'm just kidding.
But
Breastfeed. Oh.
like to think that he came from her and I, like that's just amazing because he's like seems like perfect and we're so messed up. But that having children is just such a blessing. The greatest challenge is also having children. For me, just because those first few months, you know, you don't get a lot of sleep, and there's just a lot of things you got to learn. You got to worry about, you know, am I gonna kill the kid by doing this or that and stuff like that. But the longer that goes on, then for me, it's just been a struggle. Still trying to work full time to provide for the family, try to help her out when I can. There's still sleep issues and different things like that. So I haven't been good about taking care of myself. I feel like, you know, Pastor Will talks about margin sometimes, and I'm like, oh man, I don't have any margin whatsoever. And so that's led to a lot of issues because I'm stressed or I'm not taking care of myself. So just when you're single, if you can really work on those disciplines of healthy habits, healthy rhythms in your life so that you know how to take care of yourself, especially under stressful times, because those stressful times will come. And so just being able to know how to handle yourself and help yourself heal during those times would be really important.
So good. Thank you, Austin.
I think for us, this current season that we're in now, the challenge is we're both living with my parents. And so, you know, there's a lot of like, she has to, in Korean it's called nunchiba. It's like she has to be like really aware of her in-laws and my parents. And my parents can be really difficult at times. My dad is like first generation Korean ajashi. And so she can't even like clean the dishes while he's eating dinner and things like that. And so in the beginning when we first moved, there was a lot of issues with my mom and my dad. But for me, I think my conviction and what I've been learning is I need to learn how to fight for my wife to my parents, right? And for me, it's like I'm super obedient to my parents, and I feel like now that we're back home, like I owe them so much, and I owe them, you know, like we're adults, but we're still living with them, but really understanding and really fighting for my wife and really telling them like, you can't treat my wife, you know, in the way that you have been, or you can't talk to her. Not that they were bad, but like, you know, if they say like some comments or things like that, you know, I had to sit down with my mom and like, I told her like, this is my wife, you know, and I need you to respect her, and I need you to think of her as part of our family. So,
You're building.
yeah.
I love that so much because I think setting up healthy boundaries, not just within the marriage, like couple-wise, but like even in-laws, like parents, family, that is huge, y'all. Because you'll be surprised how dependent that your parents become on you that you didn't even realize until you're married. Right. You know, so that's so good that you brought that up.
Actually, that was supposed to be one of our questions. What are the boundaries with the in-laws? And which is really important to keep a boundary with the in-laws. But going back to that challenge for our marriage, I think it was the lack of help that we have from parents. Having kids, like we raised kids on our own. It was just me and her. I met her when she was about 21, 22. I was 23, 24. When our friends were partying, we were at home raising that little thing right there. You know? And I'm not saying that we regret it, but it's just saying that was the biggest challenge because we had no help from not even her side or my side. So that was really hard. And the reward is, you know, we'll wake up, we'll see 3 healthy kids. And sometimes we wonder, how did they come out so well? Because when we look at when we're growing up, it's totally different. So we are so blessed, and we thank God every day how good they are compared to how we grew up.
Yeah.
So I think it's just generational difference. But that was a big challenge for us, not having adults help.
Yeah. Me and Alex, we barely graduated high school, y'all. We barely graduated high school. And my daughter is 17. She's a senior, and she going to college. Okay? Praise be to God. She is first gen in my family.
First one in our family to go to college.
So that is our greatest joy in our marriage, just because we know that, yes, we didn't have help from our family, but we had help from God. And he helped raise all 3 of our kids. And so, yeah, so thankful. Yeah. All right, next question. Does every couple struggle after having kids?
Yes.
All right, yes. Oh, he's handing the mic to Noriko.
I'm just saying yes. I assume for us, it was,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not. I think some people make it seem easy on social media, like, you know, I was meant to be a mom, and like, you know, this is easy, and not for everybody. So for at least in our situation, yeah, it changes. You know, it
For
changes
sure.
your life. So.
Yeah.
Well, we love our son, right? We love our son, and it's really hard. And so I think for us, after having kids, like, we always ask, who would you save from a burning building? And my husband, when my son was first born, he always said me, because he was like, I don't know him yet, but we can always make another one, you know? I mean, this is the truth. But now we always say it, and like, without a doubt, he always says, like, Luca comes first. You know, burning building, who are you gonna say? Luca, because I can always now find another one of you. I can't have another one of Luca, you know, but ditto. I feel the same. I can find, no, I'm just kidding. But I think, like, it's really hard to remember that the reason we had Luca was we came first. And I never understood when people said they idolize their kids, but now I totally understand, because everything is about your kid now. And and that's the hardest part, to intentionally really invest into your marriage and to date your spouse whilst also taking care of another human being.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me personally, like right after Luca was born, like beyond like the physical and the mental struggle, for me it was I've been struggling with like hiding behind my son, right? So when you have a baby, it's like the perfect excuse to be like late to everything, and it's the perfect excuse to like get out of anything, right? And so even when Liz and Jason, they reached out to us, they were like, hey, can you do the panel for us? We first said no, and I was like, Jane, our baby's sick, right? Like, let's not do this. And so we said no to them at first, and they came back and they were really like asking us to do it. And I was driving on the way home, and I felt the Lord convicted me, and he said, stop hiding behind your baby.
Wow.
Like, stop using
That's
your
so
baby
good.
as an excuse to not step into what God has called me to do. And so I feel like, you know, if for those that are planning to have kids or those that have young kids, obviously, you know, family comes first, your baby, you need to tend to the baby, but once it becomes an excuse to get out of the things that God has called you to do, I think that's when it becomes a problem. And that's when, you know, that's what I've been struggling with. And so I'm here now, praise the Lord, and Luca's still fine.
Hey, I want to piggyback on that. I think we could also use our kids as a reason not to work on ourselves. You see what I'm saying? Because something that you said was so key. You said that, you know, we were here before the kids. And I think that's something that we forget. You know, I have 3 wonderful kids. They're fantastic. But when they were born, especially the first 2 that were close together, you know, we forgot to work on ourselves because the focus was on them. You forget about intimacy. And, you know, and one misconception that we have before you get married is that, especially if you're a single dude, man, when I get married, man, I'm going to be getting it every night. You know, it's going to be that, yeah, you know. But it ain't like that, man.
Speak the truth.
Okay, because when you have kids, especially for the female, they breastfeeding that baby, they're tired. You know what I'm saying? And then you're tired because, especially if you're a good husband and you help, you're going to be tired. And so you have to make time for each other. You have to remember that you were here before those kids came. Okay, so make time to keep the flame alive within your marriage. That's what I got to say about that. You want to add on to that, baby?
No, I think it's really hard for women's side, because we give a birth to the child and we're physically exhausted. So we forget about husband a lot, So I'm sorry. Yeah. But, and then babies are so cute, but we have to, we have to remember that we cannot neglect that relationship, So.
It's true.
Well, with that, I want to jump into our next question because I feel like it'll just flow right in. So then I want to ask you, Noriko and Will, because you kind of already touched on the whole sex topic, but what are one or two things you can really implement in your marriage that can help you maintain a healthy marriage?
You want to answer? Oh, I would say for us, it was, recently we started really implementing this, date nights. Date nights, just even going to have coffee together. We'll leave the kids at home and we'll go to a coffee shop just to spend some time with each other because you can get to do that. And I would say the next thing is something that our pastor years ago told us during premarital counseling before we got married. He told us, what did he tell us? You remember Pastor White said? He said, oh, you don't? It's all good. He said hey, she's so real. She said, nope. He said to make sure that you put Christ at the center of your relationship. Because even when we hit that rough spot at 10 years and we were looking to separate for that period of time, we ended up staying together because Christ was the center. And so Christ, we always got drawn back to Jesus. So when you're going through a hard time, Christ will always draw you back. When you're going through struggle financially, Christ will always be there to give you wisdom within that situation. So keep Christ at the center of your marriage.
Yeah, I think for me, just piggyback on Will, we decided to have a routine where we'll go on dates. Because we should never do that. We're always so focused on raising kids, or we're going to make sure they're doing good in school. And we decided we just lost ourselves. We just lost interest for each other. We just lost what she likes and she lost what I like. So I think this past 2 years we decided twice a month we'll go on dates. And I don't know if I could say this, but yeah, it's okay.
Go there.
Every other month we decided to go to a resort to get a room. And,
You gotta keep the fire alive. Okay, we've been married for 14 years.
Sorry,
I'm
y'all.
sleeping with the same man
Sorry,
for 14 years. We have to do something to spice it up, know what I'm saying?
So,
I told you I'm gonna be 100.
so we decided to.
Golden nuggets. Golden
This
nuggets.
is practical stuff, y'all.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But
My
we did-
son
but-
is in the room. And he's 10. It's okay. It's okay, son.
So that.
Okay, keep
So
going.
when you guys don't see us at church, sorry y'all, we're at the resort because we decided one Sunday, every other month we're gonna miss church to get our separate time, personal quality time. So that's what I think implementing that as a young couple, early stages of our marriage, I think that's really important. So you guys don't lose yourselves.
Yeah.
Appreciate your relationship with your spouse. Kids are important. We actually fought a lot when our kids were small. And she always told me, you put kids before myself.
All the time.
But that was like my mindset. My mindset was, we gotta hustle, we gotta raise our kids, gotta make sure the kids don't grow up like us. That was my biggest worries, that my kids would kind of grow up like how we grew up, our childhood. So my focus was always on the kids, and that became a problem in my marriage, of our relationship. Because no matter what, my kids came before my wife. And I think that was the biggest mistake out of my first 12 years of our marriage. So the last 2 years, we've been kind of switching that. And I think that has been really making a very healthy marriage for us so far.
We got married so young. We were early 20, right? And then we had kids really young, and we were just so busy raising kids and doing family. And we kind of grew up with each other, but we kind of missed each other. We're like roommates in a house, like raising kids together. And so actually last year, Alex and we separated for 1 year because we had just hit this mark in our marriage. And I really want to just be vulnerable and open with y'all because I think it's so important for you guys to fully understand that marriage, it takes work. That is hard stuff. And sometimes it's going to take maybe a separation, maybe, hard things, right? And decisions that you have to make for whatever it takes to fight for your marriage. And for us, the only thing that we felt would be healthy for us to heal and to be able to develop was to be separated. But in that time, what God was doing was really working on our inner selves. And for the first time, this man, he never cries. Like even when our babies were born, I was like waiting for a tear to drop because I was like, this is emotional right now. But he's like, oh, like nothing. And he just never would cry. But through our separation, I think God was really breaking him down. And he actually started therapy. I've already been in therapy for years, but he started therapy for the first time. And I think God is really working on his heart, praise God. And now he cries like a baby. I don't know if that's age or really like God like messing with his heart. Like, yeah.
It's both.
Okay. But for me, definitely the one or two things, therapy. Therapy is not for crazy people, y'all. Therapy is for the normal therapy. Everybody should go to therapy. I want to encourage that. Like whether it's personal or marital, I think it's so healthy and important. And then the second thing for me, again, would just be the whole dating thing. Don't forget to date your spouse. Even if you've been married 1 year, 25 years, continue to date and continue to just, love on each other.
Just one thing before. I notice a lot of young couples, what they do is husband has a hobby or vice versa. Wife has a hobby, one stays home. I think finding a hobby that you guys could do together, I think that's really important. Doesn't have to be every week hobby, but once a month. Take intentional time to do something together. If your wife doesn't know, teach her. If a husband don't know, teach her. Find that one place that you guys could get together and connect often to spark the marriage. It's like you want to impress when you're dating, but why not impress when you're married, right? Which I think is really important.
He's impressing me right now.
Let's go.
Oh, Lord. Oh, and all that to say, we are back together. Our family is whole. Praise the Lord. And the beloved family here has walked us through so much. So we just thank you guys for that. Did you want to say anything, Noriko?
No, just, about the dating, we had a hard time to date because, we were focused on the kids so much before. But now we started dating and, going back to date. And kids really encourage us. We felt bad to go out without them, going to dinner. And we thought that they feel bad, but they actually enjoy that they see the parents having a good relationship. So, that was really helpful for us.
Yeah, that's so true. Because what you don't want to happen is, over a course of marriage, people change. The Will that was Will 20 years ago is different than the Will is today. And that's so far as Noriko. And you don't want to put so much of focus on your kids to when your kids leave, all of a sudden you don't know each other anymore. Because you've gone through life changes and now you just don't even recognize. And that typically happens a lot. So you have to constantly be working on your relationship. And you can only do that by being intentional and spending time with your spouse.
So good. I
Can
love
say
that.
something real quick?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just, Liz, you talked about therapy.
Yes.
And, like, we're talking about being married and going into therapy, but single people, like, if you didn't hear last week's message, like, listen to it. Work on yourself. Yeah. Like, if that means you need to go to therapy, like, before you get married, go to therapy. And it's not so much as like you're crazy, like that's only for like certain people, like Liz said. It's for you. Just like you go to the doctor to get a physical, you can also go to the therapist to get like a mental checkup. Just work on your emotions, work on your feelings, because all of that's gonna translate into your marriage or when you date. Yeah. And if you don't fix it, it's gonna come back to bite you. So I encourage you guys, even if you're single, like take note of that. Like, where are the things that you guys are struggling with emotionally? How, make a checklist of yourself, check yourself. Are you mature? Like, where in your life do you need to grow up? Are you selfish? Things that you need to just work on.
Yeah.
Emotionally, you need to really dig into yourself so that you can have the best possible marriage in all the stages that you're going to go through.
Come on.
So I just want to encourage you guys on that, for
That's
sure.
so good. We are kind of short on time, but I really want to get to this question because I think it's so important. So just quickly, last question. What does healthy reconciliation look like? And can you really get past resentment? Yeah.
That's good. Good question.
We have about 2 minutes.
So for me and Austin, Liz talked about being separated with Alex. Austin and I actually went through the same thing last year. We were separated for about 6 months. And we got to a point where we were just fighting, like day after day after day. Like, I was like, apologize to me. Like, say you're sorry. And it was things that I just had so much resentment in my heart for the things that he had done or would say or whatever. And I think it was vice versa. But when I went to therapy, which I encourage you guys to do, in a situation like that, I learned mechanisms, things that I could do to implement. And one of the things that my therapist told me that I didn't really know how to practice was grace. Having grace on my spouse. Yes, he messes up, but so do you. Yeah. Yes, he is sinful, but so are you. And so to always remember that, when you hold that in your heart, think about how imperfect you are also, how much you need grace from the Lord and how much in the mess ups you also need grace from your spouse. So it's hard to let go. But when you start thinking and putting things into perspective and not blowing things up out of proportion in a sense, right? Because when it's about you, it becomes bigger than when it's about the other person. So have grace, and implement that in your marriage. Implement that even when you're dating. Be respectful when you speak to one another. Yeah. When you talk to each other, are you talking to your spouse, to your significant other, with a tone that you want to be talked to too? So have the tone that you want, that you would want your husband or your spouse to talk to you the same. Respect each other. Listen before you speak. So I think those are all good signs of just reconciling well, especially during fights or tense situations. That's just my input. So.
Come on. Oh, Austin, go ahead.
Super quick. The hard thing to remember is that your marriage isn't about you. It's not about your happiness. It's not about anything. It's about what God has called for you in your marriage. So when you're looking around about how to act in marriage, you're usually probably going to look at your friends and your family, how they raised you, right? But your authority is the scriptures. What does the scriptures tell you about how you are to be as a husband and how you are to be as a wife, how you are to treat other people? And that's something that we've talked about recently is we've had to go back and compare, certain aspects of how we were raised to what the scripture says. And we have to decide, what, we need to make a change in our marriage. We need to make a change in our relationship because that's not what God wants. And God, one of the things that we know that God wants is forgiveness and grace, like Eugenia talked about. So it is definitely possible if you have your eyes set in the right place and you're taking your instructions from the right place.
Thank you, Austin. Okay, this is the final question before we close it off. Is it worth it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Every second.
Every day.
Every second.
It is. She was a little hesitant there.
It's definitely worth it. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. It's definitely been worth it.
I think when I say is it worth it, is just imagining myself growing old with somebody next to me. Growing old with my best friend. I don't want to grow old by myself. You know what I mean? Right?
Okay.
Right there, brother. So I think that's what I say, is it worth it? Just growing old with my best friend.
Come on. Can we guys just give it up for the marriage panel? Did you guys get blessed today? Were the answers good? Did you get some wisdom in your pocket? So good. Hey, we're going to actually wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for just being here, being present with us through this whole thing. We're actually going to stay up here for the next 5 to 10 minutes. If there's anybody in the room that may want to ask more questions or just receive prayer, especially our engaged ones, or even if you're married, we'd love to pray with you. We understand that, again, marriage is not as easy or as perfect, picture perfect as we see in social media or even in the world. And we'd love to be here to support, to pray, and just to be with you if you are struggling or if you simply just want prayer. So we're going to be up here. But before we release you, if I could just pray real quick over us. Yes? All right, awesome.